The scream went for 3-4 seconds, and I know that when you're out in the woods, if you encounter a predator or anything, the last thing that you want to do is run.
You knew you weren't alone. Something was there, and I can't explain that.
I've never in my life heard anything like what I heard that night.
On this episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, I would like to welcome my guest, resident of the beautiful state of Oregon, co-founder of the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot Search, and executive director of the Pacific Northwest Missing Persons Project, Tanner Hoskins. Tanner, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's tell our listeners, if you could just tell our listeners, what got you interested in the world of Bigfoot?
So for those that don't know me, I was raised by my great-grandparents, and more specifically my great-grandma. They're from 1920s rural Idaho, Orfino, Grangemont area. And as a young adult or a younger child, I was told stories of some of the logging crews that the family worked with that would randomly disappear. Their axes and chainsaws would remain in the trees, but the person operating them was nowhere in sight. And the stories originated with like hide-behinds and Sasquatch. And it was believed that hide-behinds were coming up and kidnapping loggers, which if you look into what that cryptid is, that's based on what they do. So they were blamed a lot for a lot of the missing people up there. And those stories stuck with me for a bit, but I forgot about them as a teenager. And it wasn't until I think I was 26, working at Shriners Children's Hospital here in Portland, Oregon. And my buddy Kelly Stolp came in and said, "Hey, something strange happened to me in the woods 2 nights in a row. I can't explain it." He's also an avid outdoorsman, grew up on a cattle ranch in Montana. And to hear him say that something came through camp that he couldn't explain really brought all of those stories from my childhood back to the forefront of my mind. And we've been out in the woods pretty much every month ever since.
And I'm assuming that got you started in your research, is that right?
Yep, July of 2020.
Can you just describe to them the vastness of the wilderness there?
It's when you get up on a high point and you can look out over a lot of the terrain out here, especially the Cascade Range or the Oregon Coast Range, it's a sea of emerald green. Everywhere you look, it looks like rolling ocean of trees. And it's thick. Out here on the Oregon coast, it's a temperate rainforest. So something can be 10, 15 feet in front of you, and you won't see it. It's very thick, jungle-like experience up here. And when you're up in the Cascade Range, even the subalpine terrain still has a very thick undergrowth, needle beds throughout. It's difficult to see tracks if somebody's even driving on it. We'll drive a Dodge Ram Power Wagon across the road and you won't see anything. It's endless. You can walk pretty much from the Canadian border down to and through California and never have to touch a town or a city if you really wanted to.
Can you tell the listeners just a little bit about your Pacific Northwest Bigfoot search and what you guys do? What methods you use, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So our team there's 4 of us that are co-founders, and we have a nice group of guys that come out and join us periodically as well. Kelly Stolp, Mike Palagi, Alberto Quinones, and myself. We're out in the woods at least once a month. Rain, snow, sunshine, doesn't matter to us. We're out in the woods and we'll spend time checking out new spots. Whether we got a report from somewhere, we'll expedite that. But otherwise, we focus on main hot spots, and we utilize bigfootmap.com, ran by Scott Tompkins. Outstanding mapping technology. And we'll utilize that to figure out what hotspot locations we should go to, chat with other researchers. And while we're in the woods, we'll explore some of the overgrown logging roads, places that the Forest Service has shut down. We found new trails that used to be actual trails from the Forest Service, and we'll blaze our own path along those, especially in hotspot locations. We talk to locals in the area and figure out their stories if they've had an experience or not. We use thermal imaging. We use audio recorders as much as we can, and we try to film everything we're doing. We wear GoPros like body cameras just in case we do come across something at the time and just don't have the wherewithal to pull out our phones. We just try to be in the most remote spot that we can get to. And once our vehicles can't get any further, if it's a good spot, we'll just set up camp there, or we'll just get out on foot and start hiking into the backcountry to see what we can get into. And one thing that I tell people is, in order to have a interaction with a Sasquatch or to have an encounter of some kind, you have to really be out in the woods as much as possible. And having an encounter is like winning the lottery. And the only way to win is to play the game. So we're just out as often as we can, as remote as we can, and hoping that something makes itself known to us.
Right. Have you had any encounters?
I can't say that I've had a definitive encounter. I've heard strange things in the woods. I've heard the wood knocks. I've heard whoops, things that might be identified as an owl, though some of the apps that I utilize didn't pick it up as a bird. It's hard to tell exactly what it was. The last thing that really stood out to us, and for me, was a footprint that we found on April 26th of this year. And that's probably the best evidence I've ever come across. Having an actual heel print, real toe impressions, being able to look at something in nature that does not belong, bigger than a human, and definitely not a bear, is a driving factor right now, as remotivation for what we're doing after 5 years.
Right. Were you able to get a cast or any type of LiDAR scan of it?
I took a 3D LiDAR scan of it, and then I also casted it. First cast, I've had to pour it all, other than testing it on my child's footprint somewhere. But yeah, I got to pour a cast of it. I have it sitting nearby, and I plan to have Cliff Berrickman take a look at it at the Bigfoot Museum in Sandy, Oregon, or Boring, Oregon. And then I'll have Dr. Jeff Meldrum take a look at it as well at Idaho State.
Those are two knowledgeable people, sure.
Yep.
No doubt.
Hoping they can let us know, but it's hard to debunk what I'm looking at every time I stare at it.
Right, right. How deep was the impression?
So it's probably about an inch deep along the rocks. The toe impressions were about 1.5 inches into the ground as well. It's not as much as I was expecting it to be, but the place that we casted it at was a riverbank full of rocks and sticks. So any impression in that soil was a lot more than what we could produce. We mimicked it and didn't even leave a good boot track.
Right, something fairly heavy. Was there any activity before the print? You found the print, or what?
Yeah, so this location is on the eastern side of the big lava beds of the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, and it's a hot spot location. It's north of Willard, Washington. It's known as Oklahoma Road. It's actually 2 individuals went missing in Christmas of 2024 and were located deceased, actually at almost the same spot that we were camped at. And up on the hill is a lot more hotspot locations, a lot of sightings. It's been gated off by the Forest Service in the last 5 years. So we just focus on the spot where on the other side of the river is 28,000 acres of pretty much untouchable land other than logging crew operations in the area. They're allowed to get in there. And when we went up there, we have camped there before in the past and heard strange things. And actually this year, while we were camped there, another researcher that runs the Salish Bigfoot page on our YouTube channel, they were camped 4 miles away from us, and they captured something on audio that they will be sharing here to the public in the coming weeks and months.
Oh, wow. That's pretty exciting. But I love listening to different audio recordings, of course, and I'm sure you do as well. But
yep, anything I can listen to, I try.
Yes, for sure. You can definitely go down a rabbit hole with this subject.
Easily.
We didn't talk about this previously, but the Pacific Northwest Missing Persons Project. How did you become involved in that?
So in 2021, a family friend of a man missing in the Gifford Pinchot reached out. They had seen either our Instagram or something saying where we were going to be at, and they asked us to keep an eye out for their friend's belongings or any sign of him. He had disappeared in 2015, and knowing that we were going to be in the backcountry anyway, might as well familiarize ourselves with this and see what we stumble across. And it kind of drove us to wonder how many other people are missing in the Gifford Pinchot specifically. So I reached out to the Washington State Police, and they sent me a list of 34 names, 11 confirmed to be in the forest somewhere, 23 unconfirmed, but they believe they're in the forest. And just to have 34 names within that area expanded my curiosity into who else and where else. And eventually we just started becoming familiar with missing person cases, the clothing that they had, the gear they had, and made it a focal point of our Bigfoot expeditions to keep our eye out for something that might stand out and bring closure to a family that's been grieving for a while. And eventually it ballooned into additional families and friends reaching out to us. And in June of last year, we've decided that we were taking on a lot more cases than we had the personal funding for, because all of this comes out of our own pockets. And we turned it into a nonprofit. So we are now a 501c3, and we dedicate a lot of our time to searching for missing person cold cases.
That's awesome. That's a fantastic thing to do. And from what I understand now, you do search and recovery?
We do search and recovery operations. The plan is to not have to recover it. The plan is to allow law enforcement to come in and search and rescue to do that. But should we have to touch human remains of any kind to protect it, we are trained enough to do that. Our team goes through annual trainings that we put on, and most of us are trained in evidence recovery in some way as well, myself included. So we hope to not have to, but we're ready to if we need to.
Well, that's a large national forest, I believe. I did a little bit of research in that area, about that area, and I think that forest is maybe over 1 million acres, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Very, very large.
Stretches from Mount St. Helens to Rainier to Adams and down to the Columbia River Gorge.
Wow. Lots of places to get lost, and lots of places as well for a bipedal creature to exist with cover, food, plenty of water. Let me ask you this. In your mind's eye, how do those two subjects overlap with I guess, searching? You know, you're looking for evidence when you're looking for Bigfoot or going out doing some research, and then you have the evidence as well that you're looking for, for a missing person.
Yeah, so the way I see it overlapping is there's a general curiosity to our team as to whether these Sasquatch are omnivores, and I'm sure they are, and whether they would hunt humans if they were hungry enough. It's something that we have yet to really find out. There's no proof of anything like that. But a black bear is hungry enough, it'll charge a human if it really wants to. So we wonder about it. But when it comes to the mixing, searching for Bigfoot at the same time or Sasquatch at the same time as a missing person, it's almost the same thing. You're scouring the ground, looking for tracks, looking for sign. And while you're doing that, keeping your eye out for clothing and anything else that might stand out from a missing individual. It's almost the same kind of situation. The only difference for us is that when we're looking for a missing person cold case, we're doing grid searches. And when we're looking for Sasquatch, we're not quite doing grid searches. We're just walking around and seeing what's out there. It's a weird thing to do it both at the same time sometimes. It's easy to miss some stuff. Like we passed over that track that we casted. Kelly stepped right over it, looked down at it, saw it, didn't think much about it. I walked by, came back to it, looked at it, and it took me about 30 minutes to decide, yeah, I'm gonna cast this thing just in case. But the overlap for both is just being aware, situational awareness in the woods, and using your best ability to debunk or consider what could be in this area.
As far as law enforcement, is it easy? Do they cooperate easy with you?
It depends on the agency, and sometimes it depends on the specific person we're talking to at an agency. We have a couple of counties here in Oregon that have told us they don't want anything to do with us. They don't want to provide us any information. They pretty much have threatened court orders to make us stop doing what we're doing, which blows my mind. They've admitted that they don't have funding and time to go out there and do this. And I understand search and rescue has to put all their time and funding to life-saving efforts. But meanwhile, detectives have additional cold cases, more cases coming in, and some of them are nice and friendly and want our assistance, and some of them are just don't want anything to do with us and have, like I said, told us many times that we can't go in the woods, can't go look for something. But I'd say about 75% of law enforcement that we have worked with has been very, very good to us and allowed us to review search and rescue maps, see the terrain that they have searched and didn't search. Some of them have even offered to send sergeants and search and rescue out with us at the same time. So it's hit or miss with almost any other law enforcement agency out there. But we're pretty lucky to have a good group of guys, and my background really assists in chatting with law enforcement and building rapport.
All right. Yeah, that's good to have. And one of the stories that you had on your podcast, I listened to, pretty intriguing. Jared Adodero, I believe. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
That could you tell the listeners a little bit about that case?
Yeah. It was out of Colorado. 3-year-old boy, a single father ran a resort in Colorado. There was a church group that was staying at the resort that they had built a friendship, and the church group had told the kids they were going to a fish hatchery, and the kids wanted to go with them. And Jared's dad, Alan, agreed, and thinking that that's what they were going to go do, allowed the 2 children to go with the church group. The church group, for some reason, instead of going to the hatchery, decided to go on a hike along the, I think it was Big Bear or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of the trail off the top of my head. And it's not a moderate hike. It's a more challenging hike. And the church group lost track of Jared. He ran up ahead. Supposedly he interacted with 2 fishermen, and that was the last time anybody saw him. as he ran away from the fishermen advised that they saw the church group wasn't too far behind, but far enough. And as Jared escaped their view, a scream was heard, and his sister said that it sounded almost like a playful scream. And that was the last time anybody heard of him either. And it took a few years for backcountry hikers to stumble upon his shoes, pants, shirt, and I think they found a tooth and his skull cap. Medical examiner's office said that it was likely from a mountain lion attack, but the clothing didn't have any blood splatter on it, didn't show any signs of predation. The shoes that he was wearing were not scratched up, like with drag marks that you would see if a mountain lion had drug a child up the hill. Sure. So it was a really sad situation to read about, especially with a 3-year-old of my own. It always makes me nervous, especially living in the woods. But yeah, Jared Octodaro, that's one of the cases that is still mind-boggling to myself and the rest of the team here. It just doesn't make sense that a mountain lion did that if there's no evidence that a mountain lion did it.
Correct. Are there any others that stick out to you? Have a lot of questions, I guess, that go with it.
Yeah, we have one case that we're looking into this year. Robert Bissell vanished up in Shell Rock Lake in the Mount Hood Wilderness area. He disappeared, had been up there many times, fished the lakes multiple times, camped in the area, knew it like the back of his hand. And it is believed that the day that he got up there and set up camp, he grabbed his fly fishing pole and his tackle box, left camp with no other supplies, meaning that he probably wasn't going to go too far, and never returned. He never used any of the gear at camp. So day one, he vanished. That one's mind-boggling to us, how somebody can know the backcountry that well and vanish without a trace. He also went fishing there 2 weeks after other fishermen had reported Sasquatch activity and stated that an aggressive Sasquatch drove them out of Shell Rock Lake area. So when like I said earlier, we wonder if a Sasquatch might be doing predation against humans. Robert Bissell's case is one where we are wondering if he fell victim to an aggressive Sasquatch. Another case that really stands out is Jeremy Childress out of Tillamook County, Oregon. He was an elk hunter, knew the area like the back of his hand. Him and his buddy's son got lost on logging roads trying to collect firewood to take back to camp. And as the storm was rolling in on the second night that they were going to have to sleep in the truck, Jeremy said, "I think camp is in this direction." And he said, I think it's just 2 mountains away or 2 hills away. Walked into the brush, accompanied by his friend and his friend's child. It started raining, started getting dark. The 2 friends backtracked to the truck. Jeremy continued ahead, and it turned out that he was right. He was 1.5 miles from camp, only had to get across 2 hills, and then he would be at camp, and he never made it.
Did the weather, or do you know if that played any part of?
It could have. It was raining, fog. The terrain out here is nuts. He would have had to drop down to the 400-foot elevation level and then climb, I think it's 1,700 feet up the next hill, and then do it again just to get up to his campsite. And the terrain out here is incredibly steep, very treacherous. There's deadfall everywhere. You got mountain lions, black bears, coyotes. You have a whole slew of things going against you as you wander into the storm like that. But he has also never been recovered.
What theories do you have if it's not, I guess, typical bear, mountain lion? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, we have some theories. A lot of it comes down to whether the person became disoriented. Once that panic sets in, you realize you're lost. Some individuals getting hurt and just unable to move, falling down in that kind of terrain, going underneath some of the deadfall logs, seeking shelter and just succumbing to the elements. We like to believe that a lot of these individuals have succumbed to injuries or something in the woods. But there is that little faint thing in the back of our head, just it is something else bigger out there stalking humans in the woods as well. Especially in the case of Jared Ottadaro and Robert Bissell. It's just a little strange to us that anything happened to them that wasn't likely.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. No, I'm sorry to interrupt. In the Robert Bissell case, did the fishermen that were there a couple of days earlier, did they have a Class A encounter?
As far as I remember, they stated that they had rocks thrown at them, growls. Maybe they had some kind of Class A sighting because they were sure that it was a Sasquatch that was acting aggressive. And I'm sure having rocks and large sticks thrown at you, that pretty much tells me it's probably a Sasquatch. But yeah, I think the group was like 4 or 5 fishermen that all stated that they had to flee the area for their own safety because they didn't feel comfortable there anymore.
Right. Absolutely. I believe that would run me out of camp as well. Let me ask you this, Tanner. What would you say to a skeptic?
Ooh, that's a good question. I understand skepticism. I understand also thinking that we are the apex predator of the earth, that we know what we're doing. Feels good walking around with a firearm on you thinking you're the toughest thing in the woods. But there is a lot to this world that we do not understand. There are things out there that we find new species every year. We find new species of frogs, monkeys, almost anything. We find something new. And to think that we have been all over the forest of North America, that we have seen everything there is to see, is somewhat delusional. When it comes down to like the academics that aren't willing to touch on the subject of Sasquatch, this is the whole point of science, is to have a theory and to question everything that you know. That's what I was taught as a kid growing up. You're taught something, think it over again, question everything, and to not question what has been shared for millennia by indigenous folks and cultures all over the world, actually, that there is not a bipedal ape somewhere is a little heartbreaking that we think that we know everything about this earth.
Right.
There's something out there.
You're right. There's too many sightings, too many reports of different activity, like you'd said earlier. And then, the other activity you can't explain, such as, even my neighbor had with the vocal recordings. And, a lot of people want to just stay in a box with their thinking, or, for different reasons, safety, or they don't want to think about something like that, or they don't want to, a lot of people don't want to get ridiculed, and they have a hard time talking about this subject or an encounter or an experience that they had. So,
the one thing that really stands out, and I think this might help skeptics as well, is when Lewis and Clark came across into Oregon. On their journey, they came across indigenous tribes that had sculptures and masks that looked like apes. And North America has no apes. And they found it strange that the indigenous people had very, very realistic depictions of a large ape-like creature on totem poles and in their artwork. And right then and there is enough for me to say, hey, that they had seen something, because not all of these tribes across North America knew each other or communicated with each other, at least most of the time, I'm guessing. And to have them all have some kind of variation of an ape is pretty much drives this home for me that they saw something, and whether it still exists or not, that's up for debate. But we're still getting sightings. We're still hearing vocalizations. We're seeing the recordings, footprints left. There's enough evidence out there to suggest there's something that needs to be discovered.
Totally agree.
Theodore Roosevelt also even has a chapter or a section of his book dedicated to a story he heard from frontiersmen regarding an upright, large, hair-covered monster is what they described it as.
Right.
And for a former president to have something in a book like that is also groundbreaking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Very credible.
People with a lot to lose by sharing it, too.
Sure, absolutely. A lot of people are just afraid of ridicule and don't want to share that story. And they go back, like the Ape Canyon incident of, I believe, 1924 or early 1920s.
Yep.
There's no reason for those miners to, they had nothing to gain.
No.
They left everything behind, actually.
Yep.
Because they got ran out of camp, so by possible Sasquatch. And that's the term Bigfoot, I guess, was coined in the late 50s, maybe.
50s or 60s. Can't remember.
Right. And like you said before then, it was hairy man or forest creature or wood devil or something like that. So.
Yep.
Well, Tanner, I do this at the end of each episode. I have a rapid fire Q&A. I'll give you 3 questions, and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right.
Ready?
Yep.
All right. Favorite food to eat while camping or doing research?
Steak.
Steak. Oh, good. That might be mine just any time, actually. Favorite Bigfoot or mystery show, past or present?
I like it for the entertainment value. Expedition Bigfoot.
Yes. Absolutely.
Russell Acord.
Yes.
Yeah.
Russell's top notch. He's
yes, he is
survivalist, and he's had a lot of experience outdoors for sure. Last one. Favorite movie?
Oh, that one's tough. So many just came to my mind. Probably Why Him, 22 Jump Street, any comedy really. Yeah, comedy gold.
You can't go wrong with those.
Old School with Will Ferrell.
That's a good one.
Also, yeah.
Will Ferrell's great. Yeah, Step Brothers is probably one of my favorites with him.
Yep, I love Step Brothers.
I don't know how many times I've watched that.
I don't know how many times I've made my wife watch that.
If you can, just tell, and I'll put your social media links down in the description, but if you can, tell the listeners how to get in touch with you or keep up with what you're doing.
Yep. On Facebook and Instagram, you can look at PNW Bigfoot Search, and that'll be our Sasquatch research team. And if you want to follow along with the missing persons, it's PNWMPP, or just type in Pacific Northwest Missing Persons Project on Google search, and we're the first thing that pops up. Same thing with Pacific Northwest Bigfoot. You can type that into Google and it'll pop right up. You can also visit our websites, www.pnwbigfootsearch.com and pnwmpp.org. There you'll find an interactive map of missing person cases from pretty much North America. It's updated at least once a month, usually more often, and you can become familiar with the missing person cases in the area that you might plan to recreate in.
Good deal. Yes, that's I need to hire you to manage my time because you have a lot of stuff going on, and you have to be very good at time management, I'm assuming.
That, and I'm pretty good at running off of 6 hours or 5 hours of sleep.
That's probably part of it as well. Yes.
Yeah.
You stay busy, and that's another thing. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to come on the show And I truly, truly enjoyed it. I really did.
Me too. Thanks for having me on.
And for the listeners, please check out the Pacific Northwest Missing Persons Project. It's really a fantastic thing that Tanner and his group are doing. Support them. I will leave a link in the description. And if you've had an encounter, an experience, or just something unexplainable, shoot me an email with your contact information at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless.